Hello there, everyone. Welcome to, can you believe it, the 30th episode of
Wow.
Duels Across the Stars. Insane. I cannot. Technically, it's 32 episodes because we've got the two specials as well, but no, this is episode 30 of our series, ranking our top five different things across the Star Trek and Star Wars franchises every couple of weeks. This episode is going to be looking at top five underrated starships. I
Yay.
am Olympus, and this is.
And I'm Ben Carno, getting all excited about doing our underrated starships. I know we've done starships before, and hopefully, in theory, these should be different, but we'll find out by the end of it. And if you,
Absolutely.
yeah, and if you're not sure if we are contradicting what we said in that, I think it was episode 3 we done, or episode 4 where we done a starship. So please go and have a look on YouTube, TrekWars and Fantasy, or on Apple Podcasts at TrekWars and Fantasy. Plug done. So,
Plug done, sorted
yeah,
out. Do we have any rules of acquisition before we get started with our top five picks?
I don't really have many, but considering we've done a top 5 already in the past, I've decided not to pick anything anybody we had in there had picked. So whether it's you, me, or our guest at the time, Stu from Hayden Frequencies. Also, if I think the fans generally like these ones or they get mentioned in rankings a lot, I'm not going to go for it. More anecdotally than anything at all there.
Makes sense.
Olympus, any rules for you?
Well, as you already know, because I had a little rant about it earlier on, I really struggled with this list. Not because of the starships bit, that's super easy, because of the underrated bit. So what I've done is I have not named a specific starship. I am going based off of the class or model number, or however you'd call it, of starship. So it's more talking about the starship model, let's call it, rather than a specific example of one. The other thing, underrated, I've skirted around this a little bit. I'm going for ships that either you don't see much of, you don't see the fan love for some of them that I think there should be, or a ship that is actually deemed in the given universe to be a bit underrated, a bit of an underdog, something like that. So as you can tell, a little bit loosey-goosey with some of my guidelines, but we'll see how we get on. It managed to get me to a top 5. I was squeaky edge of the seat managing to get my top 5 before we actually hit the record button.
Yeah.
But I got there, and I got there without sharing any of them either, didn't I, Benny?
Yeah, you did.
Um,
Yeah, I know.
winner.
I know. I brought in some of those myself. If some of these don't get used that much, or you don't see much in the shows or films, then yeah, it has been a little bit more brought forward for me. At least with some of the lower picks.
Amazing.
So you've mentioned you haven't shared with me. I haven't shared with you either. So we haven't helped each other. So we're trying to get the live reaction going. But tell you what, Olympus, do you want to go first and pick your number 5 pick, also because we're going in reverse order?
Yes, we are. We are. Let's stick with reverse order as always. Thank you very much. I will love to go first, and I'm going to go with a classic ship from Star Trek. People will know this as soon as you see it by its golf ball shaped front and then weird angular rear design. I am, of course, talking about the medical ship in
Is
Star
it
Trek.
related to your name? Sorry to interrupt.
Actually, there is. You're right. So I was talking about the Oberth. The Olympus is a variant of the Oberth, isn't it? I'd forgotten about that.
I was thinking
An
you're
STO.
going. I was thinking you're going down the Olympic class. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. I said Olympus. Olympic, thank you. Yes, no. So yes, the Olympics are variant of the Oberth, so I guess one and the same. But yeah, it's first seen from my perspective. Anyway, I believe it's first seen in Star Trek: The Next Generation. It is a very funky design. I remember the first time watching the show, seeing it, going, "What the f is that?" Because all Starship ships are nice and sleek with their saucer sections and their star drive bits, and it's all lovely. And the Oberth is so different looking that it does stand out. You raise your eyebrow a bit Spock-like at it, but you know what? Over time, you can come to love it. And I remember it most from the TNG finale, All Good Things, parts 1 and 2. You see Beverly Crusher captaining one. You also get a lovely reference from Dr. Ta'ana in Lower Decks, talking about how she didn't serve all those years on a no birth glass to get picked off of the Cerritos to a starbase or something along those lines, which is a fun little quip and a lovely little nod to the Oberth. And as you've kind of mentioned before, you've got the variant, the Olympic. There's another variant. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. With both of those within Star Trek Online. And again, very, very pretty ships. They've got a new T6 variant, which has recently come out in the last 6 months as well. So I'm looking forward to getting into playing that as soon as I can get back into my computer, which is still broken. But hey, fingers crossed that gets fixed soon too. So yeah, that's my number 5, the Oberth.
Oh, cool. Glad you went with that. Yeah, and I was thinking the Pasteur with, which I'm sure was Olympic cast, but
Master, yes.
yeah. Anyway, my number 5 pick is going to the other franchise, and I'm going with one that was in one of the best opening scenes ever in Star Wars films, and that's a Jedi Starfighter. You would have seen Obi-Wan and Anakin in at the beginning of. I'm just saying, yeah, it was episode 3, and I've really forgot. Revenge of the. I always get these.
Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah.
Revenge of the Sith.
Thank you. And I was like, I always end up getting these muddled up in the wrong order. Going episode 77 to Battle for Geonosis or something stupid like that. Because I'm just the way my head works. But the way that fight was, knocking all the buzz droids off, all the fighting with that, the whole scene's landing on the ship, Star Destroyer, and then the rescue afterwards, and the last crash landing. These ships are just seen in my memory and don't get as much mentions or love as that scene or the X-Wings or the TIE Fighters or such like. It would be nice to see a few more of them in. Okay, I know you got hundreds of ships, but it's one of those ones that, yeah, I think is underrated when it comes to putting them in the show or the shows and having them on, and not saying, and the love that scene gets from the shows. Go on, Olympus.
All I'll say is watch the Clone Wars. That's the only reason why I didn't have the Jedi Starfighter on my top 5, is because I've watched this Clone Wars start to finish. You see them use those Starfighters a good chunk more in the animated series. And it's a lovely homage to them. No, I'm so glad that you had it on your list. It's one of my favourite Starfighter models in Star Wars, and an extra special mention for me to go out to the crashed Jedi Starfighter that you see at the start of Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order.
Cool.
How Estes is on Braca, and you're going through the tutorial. You come across one embedded into a very large ship. They're in the process of dismantling.
And to be honest, that's half the reason why it's in there, because you do see it a lot in for the prequel Clone Wars periods, but it just hasn't got that. If you asked to name 5 or 10 starships, that would probably not get up there. That's probably not going to.
No, I think you're right. That's a very fair point. I think you're right there. I love as well how it seems to take its design a little bit from the B-wing. The B-wing, is that right?
Why U-wing? U-wing. The
No, I
B-wings
wasn't
I
thinking
think's
the
across.
U-wing. No, 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 it's not a B-wing. It's not the U-wing either, though. Hang on
Oh,
a second, I'm gonna have to Google this. A-wing. That's what I was thinking about. It's
yes,
the A-wing from the original trilogy.
that's it.
I find the design is quite similar, so I almost think of the A-wing as an evolution of the Jedi Starfighter.
Yeah, and I do like the evolution of various ships, and I nearly went for a YT class earlier.
Yeah, I can
It
see
is,
why.
yeah, with some of the different ones. So that's my number 5 pick, the Jedi Starfighter.
Thank you. So I'm going to plus back to Star Trek again. And I'm going to take us to a starship, which I've got a model for actually, which
Yay!
I'll go and find. Yeah, yeah,
Oh
show and
look!
tell. We like show
Oh,
and tell.
I love
Ah,
that. I realise it's like only one. Oh, I don't think I have any models this time for any of my ship.
that's okay. I'll lead the fort on that one then. So we have the Valdor class,
Oh,
which is a Romulan starship that you see in Star Trek Nemesis for the first time. It is a sort of very sleek, hyper-futuristic take on the bigger, bulkier, but so beautiful Dederadex class. And I fell in love with this immediately. It looks, as I say, sleek but menacing. It definitely looks bird-like, hawk-like, and it's still got a tiny little bit. You can see just in the see if I can get this camera right. You can see the little gaps at the different sort of
oh, you
points here and
can.
here. Again, similar to the Dederadex, it's got the massive big hole in the middle of the ship. They've got
Yeah,
tiny little ones in in the Valdor there.
yeah. If you looked
Um,
at the top, it's almost as if they cut the bottom part off of Deredex. But
yeah,
then
yeah,
you
it
look at the
is.
bottom.
Yeah, exactly. If I do that,
Yeah.
actually, there you go.
So what's the one from Nemesis called the Scimitar? I think, isn't it?
So there's a Valdor, which is this model here. The
Ah,
Scimitar's the big um boss. I'll call it a boss ship. The massive big it's a massive big one. All of the different
St.
parts
John's
come out
ones,
the
anyway.
wings and
Oh
everything.
yeah,
So it's about to fire the Thaleron weapon. The other thing I love about this ship though is it's actually got 4 nacelles. So you've got these 2 long, thin
the
ones
end of the
there
wings.
and
Yeah.
there. And there's tiny, tiny little ones on either end of the wings as well,
Oh, never
which
noticed
adds,
that.
I guess, as supplements. Um, for some reason, I'll need to read up on why they have them. But yeah, they're sort of like a secondary warp nacelles.
Oh, cool.
So yes, that's my number 4 pick, and also the Valdor and its sister ship absolutely kicked ass in the fight with the Scimitar and the Enterprise E. So deserves a special mention for that specific ship in question too.
Oh, cool. I'm glad you did. I'm glad you did. There was some nice ships in there. I think it's 2 episodes in a row where you mentioned something from Nemesis. So with
Actually,
land
yeah,
vehicles
probably is actually. Yeah,
and
yeah, land
the
vehicles. We had the Argo. I remembered it
okay, yeah,
this
yeah,
time.
yeah. Um. Anyway, uh, before we get a reputation, I'm gonna go with my number 4 pick, uh, and that's gonna be one that again is a reasonably well known one, but it doesn't get the love it deserves, and that's the Hammerhead Corvette from Star Wars. So it's the one
Oh,
with the like hammerhead on its side, and it's we used it and seen in good effect in at least one of the films where you see it knocking into one of the Star Destroyers, knocking that into another one, and them all going kaboom. Um, it's we yeah we don't really get to spend much time in it night in with them, and again there's a couple of good scenes, or at least one good scene where you see it in action. And but yeah, compared to say their Star Destroyers of various uh, levels and sizes, and a lot of the smaller ships you see with the Rebel Alliance or other such like, it doesn't get as much love. And I absolutely love the idea of it using to knock, basically ramming stuff in battles, and it adds to something different into a battle where when you see it do that, rather than just lots of shooting, uh, sweeping around, or and in the case of the Jedi Starfighter, it's lots of small steps trying to pincer something or get to a certain location. This has a different motive in battle and a great look, in my opinion. Uh,
I'd agree with you there. It's a beautiful ship.
yeah. Do you have any other thoughts on that?
No, no, just really glad you picked it. In fact, one thought I will share. I love the fans, inverted commas, who complained about that scene where they use the hammerhead to ram into one of the Star Destroyers to take out the other one. I love watching and reading some of that stuff, kind of sitting back thinking, you really don't understand how space works, do you? Because there's no friction in space. There's nothing to, apart from the momentum of the other ship, there's nothing to stop it from being veered off in another direction. So all they need
Yeah.
to do is engage their engines as hard as they can without burning themselves up, and voila, you can shift it.
Yeah.
Um,
And that's probably another reason why it came to mind, because that scene I can remember. I couldn't remember the specifics, but it was like I just remember it not being everybody whinging about
yeah,
things like that.
it's I loved how creative that was, and I'll always remember that ship for that very reason.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I've got another ship coming up that's, yeah, gets
Mm.
hate for not, for things I don't think is deserved.
Yeah, good. Let's share it some love when we get round to that. And I'm going to jump very quickly into my number 3 pick.
Ooh.
And takes us back to Star Trek again. You see what's going on? It's like
Oh,
Star Trek,
God.
Star Wars, Star Trek, Star Wars, Star Trek, Star Wars.
Can we have
Um,
two five all draw here on either side, each person?
it might happen. It might happen. It'll be a first, I think, but it
Yeah.
might. This is probably one of my favorite ships from an aesthetic point of view, a unique aesthetic point of view, I will add. And we do not get to see enough of it in the Star Trek universe, and that is the Akira class.
Oh,
Um,
cool. That was one of the early ones I picked, but never kept to.
ooh, it's just, yeah, I think it's just beautiful. And it's a shame I don't have a model of it, but the typical saucer section, but then the two struts, instead of going sort of down at an angle, are almost horizontal, which attaches to star drive, the two nacelles either side of it. But it's such a unique view, incorporating probably a couple of elements of the Dideridex. You've got the spaces between different elements of the ship that you have, like in the Dideridex, but it looks sleek. It looks, again, futuristic. If you compare an Akira class to the Abirth, for example, the Akira is going to run rings around it, and it looks stylish to boot compared to the Abirth. And as I say, it's not used enough in my mind. I was so glad to catch a glimpse of it in Star Trek Picard. I believe it's in the fleet for the Anomaly in season 2.
Cool.
It comes to the aid of the Stargazer alongside some of the other fleet vessels. Is it the Thunderchild? I'll need to double check
I
that. But I think,
recall that, but I can't remember if it's specifically from that scene.
yeah, and again, there are variants of it in Star Trek Online, which look nice, but the classic Akira is by far the prettiest. She's a worker, but she's very much a tactical ship. I believe, from a lore point of view, it was designed to help combat the Borg threat alongside ships like the Defiant. Um, and yeah, once obviously the Borg threat sort of was stood down, it served a bit of the Dominion War side of things, and yeah, still had enough around it to act as a science and exploration vessel, which Starfleet always made a point of sort of facilitating. So an all-round useful ship, but one of the power horses of combat, for sure.
Yeah, the thing I like about it is it's recognisably Starfleet, but it has that different
Yes.
look at it. With the reappear was the two bits coming off the back that's not your nacelles, um, or your atypical nacelles like you would see on any of the Enterprises or Voyager, uh, or even Voyager, which has got slightly different nacelles. It's slightly different in that respect.
Hmm.
No, I'm glad you picked that. As I said, it was considered in my head, and it just didn't. It wasn't a keeper, unfortunately for me. But I'm glad you had it. There.
Thank you. How about your number three, Ben?
My one is a lot bigger. It's almost mega size. It's
Oh,
a mega class Star Destroyer. So this is from the Last Jedi. It's almost it's like a V shaped in or very wide V. When very looks like very basic two very long wings attached to each other, um, next to each other. And this one was from, I would say, one of the best scenes. But I know a lot of fans said this is a horrible scene, and this one is the one where everybody was trying to escape from the attacks, and you had one person go off by themselves and literally just jump into hyperdrive just into this ship, which blew it up. And you see all the other ships nearby as well go kaboom. You hear that bit of silence as well, and just the look was amazing. And the ship actually looks really menacing and cool and a starship, and it has the interiors. You did get to see a bit of the interiors, and it's very, even though this is the First Order, it comes from the Empire in a sense. It looks very Empire, Galactic Empire looking in its look. So the open areas, the sheer vastness of it inside, and yeah, if I wanted like a rebel, a big villainous ship, that would be definitely considered.
yeah, it's properly menacing. It's a beautiful ship, and actually, that's one of my favorite scenes in The Last Jedi. I thought it was created absolutely beautifully. It was stunning. It had amazing cinematic impact, and it really brought to life the sacrifice and also the desperateness, if that's the
Yeah,
word, the desperation of the rebels at that point.
yeah,
So I thought it brought all that to life absolutely beautifully, and yeah, to go back to the ship, I can't really add much more beyond what you've said, but I'm really glad you picked it. I totally forgot about it. It was just so huge and imposing, and it looked menacing, like scimitar-like, but on such a more massive scale. Um,
yeah. Uh,
yeah, it was something to behold.
and I'm glad they made something slightly different than basically a big cheese wedge or pizza wedge. Which nothing wrong with them. Very nice ships, but just very very much used in, so there was slightly
Yeah.
different aspects to it. And maybe we'll go underappreciated characters at some point, but Hodo I actually liked. Okay, I could see why she could get up some people's get annoyed. People could get annoyed with her, but that was the character that she was playing. That she is actually a good guy, and she is the ranking officer, and they were treating her as like in a military circumstances. But
And I'll actually say I really liked her character because she was doing what needed to be done the entire way through that movie.
yes,
And she was doing it the right way. A character that I quite liked in the first and third of that trilogy, but did not like in the second, was Poe Dameron. I'm totally digressing here for a second, but I'm going to have a little rant about Poe.
no, please do.
And that rant will simply consist of he was such a child and totally in just I can't even think of the words. He was just so childlike. He had a proper temper tantrum, proper strop, and didn't understand why he was being treated the way he was being treated. He created that himself in
Yeah.
that movie, and he annoyed me in that movie. I said, I liked him in the first, I liked him in the third. That one there, for some reason, that change in character direction from obviously director and story and whatever, fine, that's what happened, but I was not a fan of that. But that equally led me to like Holdo more. So you could say it worked out well.
Yeah. No, it had the same kind of thing with you, but from a different perspective. Um, yeah, and I suppose I don't necessarily think of it like that, but I'm not necessarily like that, but that from that perspective. But yeah, that has, I suppose that has an impression on me. It's like, yeah, you're not the world doesn't
Revolve around Poe
over
Dameron.
Poe Dameron, and like it's the same as Han Solo. It didn't revolve around him when it came to it. Uh,
Yeah.
okay, they went slightly
No, no,
different ways, but different angles
you've got to
to
be a
it.
Skywalker. Sorry, you've got to be a Skywalker for the world to revolve around you.
Oh yeah, there's a different story. Anyway, um, that was my number three pick, the Mega Class Star Destroyer or
And
Dreadnought.
a
Sorry.
beautiful, sorry, yeah, a beautiful dreadnought it is. Thank you for picking that, mate. My number two is back to Star Trek. You know, that's 3 for 3 so far as well.
It is.
Star Wars 3, Star Trek 3. Mine is the next one is the Luna class
Ooh.
Star Trek ship, which we know most commonly from the ship, the USS Titan, that Riker is promoted to captain at the end of Star Trek Nemesis. And you get to see it in all its animated glory in the end of season 1 of Star Trek Lower Decks. It is a gorgeous ship. I play it in Star Trek Online. It's got some cool functions in Star Trek Online that move between a science mode and a tactical mode, and actually makes the ship quite powerful. Fast turn rate when you've got the tactical mode on in particular makes it very, very brilliant tactical ship, and you can quickly switch out of that back to science if you decide that you want to play the game a little bit differently and a little bit more sciencey. It is very, very nice to look at. It again it's got that exploration feel to it, whilst also being able to handle the difficult situations, which Lower Decks plays on going into season 2. And not much more to say about it because they don't show it off very much. There is a book series around
so.
it called Titan, which I have not read yet, but it is on my to-read list, and I've heard it's good. So it's been recommended to me as well. So that's going to be worthwhile reading. But yeah, apart from having heard reference of it in Nemesis, seeing it briefly a couple of times in Lower Decks, and obviously that book or book series, you don't get to see a Luna class being used, which is gutting because it looks like such a resilient, lovely Starfleet ship. So yeah, hopefully Paramount get their finger out and start using them a bit more in some upcoming series. We can but hope.
Fingers crossed. Yeah, it is a lovely looking ship, and same for I think say any of the ones you've done, just nice looking, and it's one of those ones where I hope they spend some more time in an episode or something like that, because like a lot of like in Star Wars, there's a lot of ships out there, and never enough hours in the day to show it off.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I'm going to jump to my number two pick here, and this one's from my game, and I know this a game, and I know this is not necessarily one of the loved ones from this game, and actually it's probably one of the only ones that I've heard people mention that they don't like it, and this is from the game Star Wars: The Old Republic, and each class has their own starship, which they have and travel the galaxy in from planet to planet. You don't really get to see the outside very often, other than maybe takeoff and landing. But you get to see the interior quite a lot of these 6 ships. I say 6 because there's 8 classes, but both the Jedi ships and the Sith ships, we have 2 Sith and 2 Jedi characters, and they have the same style ship. They retrieve. Um, so there's basically 6 of them played between 8 characters. Um, and my one is the Defender class light corvette, which is the one for the Jedi uh, characters.
Hang on a minute. Who doesn't like that ship? I think it's lovely.
Oh, I'm glad you like it, but I can remember the podcasts in the years gone by of people going, oh, no, I don't like that one. I think this one's better. Usually it's all the Imperial sides, people who like the Imperial classes and say that.
Well, they should stick to Imperial and leave the Jedi alone. I mean,
Yeah.
I just think it looks kind of like like it's been, to me anyway, because I know you've got the smuggler ship, which is very much a copy and adjustment of the Ebon Hawk. But the the Jedi Starship, the Defender, to me actually, I can see some elements of the Ebon Hawk in that as well. But they've almost taken it as inspiration and properly redesigned the ship, which is something I love. It. They've created something so unique and very Jedi-like, but it looks so cool. No, I love that ship.
No, I think so as well. Bear in mind, most of the things you hear when it comes to the classes is like, oh, we love the Imperial classes. Not sure about the troopers. Smugglers, cheesy but fun. And the ship there is again like a bit like Ebon Hawk, but it's also you can see where the Falcon got its look from when you see that as well. Okay, I never hear anybody praise the trooper ship actually, but I haven't heard anybody complain about that. But yeah, you have like the stairwell in the middle of the ship, which is when you land, it would go down and you can exit underneath the ship while it's on platforms, I presume. You got one end, you got the bridge. You got a back like a gathering room, relaxation room, and you have the communicating bit there. Near one of theirs, you also have a side section, I think, towards the front, where you have the office, or the office like the proper meeting room, which gets used mainly in the Jedi Consular story towards the latter part of that series. You've got a downstairs bit where you have a couple of rooms, bedding rooms, and I think you have your own bedding rooms in there. But I do like that simple, straightforward room, bridge, like library section towards the rear of the ship, or presume it's towards the rear of the ship, as the other ends the bridge. Yeah, no, I like it. And actually, when I finish, I've got to have a look up of the top 5 SWOTOR ships and see if I'm actually my anecdotal version is that good or not. But
I'm so glad you brought it up, though. I'm so glad that's in your list. It's a beautiful ship, very very functional and beautiful inside. You can tell from the interior it belongs to a Jedi, which is what you want.
yeah.
Yeah, not much more to add, but thank you for adding that into your top 5.
Yeah, and another reason it's there is because I do like my Jedi characters as well. So there we go. Anyway,
Brilliant.
shall we get to number 1?
Yeah, because that's 4 for 4. I'm gonna try and make it 5 for 5.
Oh wow!
My first ever episode where all 5 of my picks have been in one franchise.
Oh wow!
I think. I'm pretty sure this is the first time for me. And I'm actually going to take us to a ship which is loved now by a lot of fans in Star Trek. And it does get a hell of a lot of love and appreciation. So you'll be wondering for a minute, where the underrated comes from, but I
I'm
think
wondering
then
if
you'll
you
get
picked
it
the
pretty
same.
quick.
I'm wondering if you picked the same one as me now.
Your last one's a Star Trek one? Oh. Ooh. We know who won.
Yeah.
Let's see. It's the California class
Oh,
USS
it's not.
Cerritos.
It's not.
Oh
Damn
no.
it.
Okay. Uh, yeah. I'm going with the California class starship from Star Trek Lower Decks. It is the workhorse of the Federation fleet. A very, very unique design. Again, you've got the traditional saucer section on top, but you've then got struts that lead to the star drive section, which has the nacelles attached to it, as opposed to the deflector and that star drive being attached, and then the struts leading to the nacelles. Very, very different, unique ship. From a design point of view, it looks clunky because it's meant to look clunky. It is the it's the class of starship that no one else in Starfleet, probably in the Federation, knows exists. And yeah, it's very much treated as bottom of the rung of the Starfleet sort of organization. These ships do all the dirty jobs that no other ship wants to do. They've got second contact instead of first contact. So where your first contact is all of the sparkly, who new alien, let's do this dangerous and high risk introduction. No, the Cerritos or other California class ships have to turn up sometime after that and do second contact, which is all about the logistics, getting them set up, trying to get them signed on to the Federation. Make sure they've got the equipment they need, make sure that everyone knows what bars to go to if they're visiting the planet, all of that silly stuff. I hope that gives people who haven't watched Lower Decks a picture of what the California class is used for. That's why it's considered to me to be underrated. This is a ship in particular where all the other ones that I've picked have been underrated from a fan point of view, in my eyes, or from a point that the show doesn't show enough of them, or the franchise doesn't show enough of them. This one is underrated by Starfleet itself.
Do you know, I was
because
wondering about that. When you started, I went, Lower Decks started to get really loved, and it's like, why are we talking that? And now, yeah, I see where you're coming from. It's underrated from the perspective of, yeah, the Admiralty,
yeah,
the Enterprise, and Voyager crews and such like.
exactly. Truly underrated within the actual franchise itself, within the lore of the franchise. So that's why it's my number one pick. And yeah, it's I can't remember what else I was going to say. I don't think there was much else. I'm just going to start rambling shortly, so I'll need to stop. But I absolutely love it to bits. It's full of character. The crews that you have on them are very heartwarming and very down to earth and very. I mean, you just need to watch Lower Decks to understand what they're like. If you haven't watched it, guys, go watch Lower Decks. It's brilliant. It's full of Star Trek lore through and through. It really pays homage to the franchise in a very fun way. And yeah, it's going through its last season at the moment on Disney Plus. No, it's not Disney Plus. The Paramount
Paramount
Plus.
Plus.
Too many Disney shows. So yeah, that's my number one. Is the California class.
Yeah. Now, my pick, as we've worked out, is from Star Trek. But from this perspective, it was the dark horse. It was the black sheep of the franchise before the new stuff was, before Discovery was, and Picard was. But it was the black sheep of the family after TNG was for the TOS point of view, and DS9 was for the people who got brought up on that. This was the dark sheep of the thing back in the early O's and tens, and this was probably just hated by fans because it was part of this series, and because there was a song that was generally hated that wasn't your stereotypical Star Trek song, and this one was just hated because it was oh, this looks too much like modern starships, and it looks more advanced than the original Enterprise 1701. And the class I'm going for is the NX class, the specifically NX01, but I also could go for the NX02 on this. So you got the new original Enterprise, captained by Jonathan Archer here, which
It's been a long time getting from there, dear.
it has, and I'm glad
No
you brought
one
that.
has quoted it. It's
Yeah,
been a long road getting from there to here.
yeah, yes, and it definitely has been a long road getting from here to start getting some love, which is what I was thinking you were going for when you said getting some love, and in my opinion, it comes from an underappreciated show, and it is one to set up the ships that came in the future, whether that's the Constitution class, um, whether that's the even any of the other ones, whether that's Galaxy class or even Voyager to a degree, and probably all nearest damn it all the ones you've said on your list here. Birth probably being the most different to that. It has
Yeah,
that
the only
sort of,
exception will be the Valdor, which is
yeah,
Romulan.
Romulan ship, yeah. But yeah, no, agree. And it's like has those tuna nacelles at the back, has that saucer section at the front. But yeah, it looks other than modern technology, or for me that's modern technology. That's now 20 years, 24 years old now.
Yeah.
It has that updated look and what consoles would look like, and you have that difference from let's say 1960s, 1970s spaceships and shuttles. The shuttles didn't come till later, but yeah, 60s and 70s, 80s, 90s stuff, and then fixing that to 1701, which I think it does a lovely job at doing. Any thoughts?
Mate, it's an icon. It's a classic. I loved it from the get-go. Totally agree with the design points as well. It's very clearly Starfleet even before Starfleet was a thing by that point,
Yeah,
but it was
before the
Starfleet
Federation.
before Starfleet was probably formed, with the Federation and everything kicking off with that. So no, the design was iconic. It was and familiar. You could see how it evolves into the 1701, 100%. And also, I know you'll have seen the designs for the cancelled season 5 refit of the NX01, which brought even more of the 1701 design in, the Constitution class design into the frame of it. And we get to see a little glimpse of that, if I remember right, in Star Trek Picard at the Starship Museum, which was a lovely little touch. If you look closely, you can see the refit. I'm not sure if it was the Enterprise or the Columbia refit that's stocked there, but you do see the refit version, which was such a nice touch that they brought into it. I'm actually due to rewatch Enterprise as well. You're right, it was so underappreciated, and I feel terrible because it never occurred to me going through my list about the NX01, but it is totally underrated, and it would have been quite high up. It might not have beaten California, but it might have beaten Luna. It could have taken the second spot for me.
Oh, cool. Yeah, for me, yeah, it's one of those ones that it's the hero ship. It's iconic, but it's in your face and gets lots of time, but it just doesn't get, in my opinion,
The love.
it's not the love that I think it should. But again, there's only so much love to go around, which I think is why it's underrated. So,
and of course, it was as you mentioned at the start. It's starting to come into the more modern era that we live in now, where, let's be honest, the fandom has changed and evolved a bit. It's still nothing like what the Star Wars fandom's like, don't get me wrong, but we don't have as forgiving, or that's the wrong word, we don't have as an accepting a fandom as we once did. It's just how
Yeah.
times have changed.
Yeah, it has. I know there was talk from. I'm not going to go on this too much, but I know that there was articles back in the day, back in the 80s when TNG was coming on, that you would have seen. Oh, this is a crew without Kirk and McCoy and Scotty, etc. Where it's not the same. And unfortunately, that's something happened, and yeah, it has changed a lot in that with the media, and you see that in Disney with the Disney purchasing of Star Wars with the new stuff there as well. You get that. Try to keep out, but that's why I want to do this. I'd like to do this show is because I'd like to go. There's good sides in everything, even the prequels, which got its hate in the time. Um,
They're very loved now.
yeah,
Don't get me wrong, Phantom Menace still gets the occasional sort of glare, but
yeah,
it is the prequels are very loved now.
yeah.
You know, and things are starting to turn around for the sequel trilogy. Give it another 5 years, and people will be starting to love that a lot more. You're starting to see a lot of love for the Rey character actually starting to come through in the last couple of years. And there's quite a lot of support for her new movie, which will hopefully be out at some
I
point in the
hope
next
so.
5.
I seriously
I'm
hope so.
hoping so too. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah. Anyway, our scores on the doors, we've worked that out already because we've somehow managed to keep track this time, which we don't usually 6-4 to Star Trek. Any honourable mentions, Olympus?
No, because I struggled so much getting these pulled together. If there were any honourable mentions, it probably would have been the NX-01 Enterprise, which I had forgotten about until you brought it up. What a stellar first pick. It's like, thank
Yeah,
you for that.
definitely.
Actually, you know what? I'm going to throw Defiant out there. I know fans do love it, which is why it's not been on my list, because I was thinking it's too loved now. But you know, back when DS9 first came out, and for that time just afterwards, not a lot of love for that little ship.
I can imagine
Um,
that, yeah. Because, yeah,
yeah,
that's definitely not
whereas
the same style as
yeah,
the rest of the ship.
whereas First Contact, I love how First Contact brought it back in at the very start and absolutely pulverized it, but gave it the love at the same time.
Yeah. So, a couple of honourable mentions for mine. I believe it's got its name, the Crossfield class, which I think you've got a model of nearby. So, for anybody watching on YouTube, we'll get to see an image shortly. Um,
Here you go.
there we are.
XL version of the model here.
Yeah. So that's the Discovery, which it took a while before we, I think, found out the name of. Um, lovely.
It pretty.
Yeah.
And yeah, this is a season 1 and season 2 version, not the season 3 onwards.
Yeah. I also from Star Wars we've got the B wing, which I'm still struggling to work out why it looks like a B, but it's more of a cross uh, look.
I bet they designed it and then went, that looks like an X. Oh wait a minute,
Yeah,
we've already got an X-wing.
yeah. That's the thing. It looks more like if I'm going to name it. One I did consider was the YT 2400 light freighter, which is almost like the circle for the Millennium Falcon, but with a little bit off to the cockpit off to the right hand side. I know that's on there, but it's two bits stick out, and then you have like a long cockpit down to one side, just because it looks good. And I think there was one more which I'm trying to remember, but obviously wasn't that good of a memory one that I haven't kept it. So that will just go to the sidetrack. Anyway, anything else to mention, Olympus?
I don't think so. Apart from, if you've enjoyed this, please like, subscribe, follow, all that good stuff on the respective platforms. If there is a comment section, please get involved. Share with us your top 5 underrated starships from Star Trek or Star Wars, and we'll get involved in that conversation too. on YouTube, please keep an eye out for Ben's community page, where I believe, mate, you put up some posts every now and then, some different votes and whatnot. I think I saw one that went up not too long ago regarding the content and what we might want to see on your page. So yeah, guys, please keep an eye out and jump over there. Appreciate the engagement as always, and I'll stop rambling from that point, apart from to say thank you so much for joining us. Take care, and Ben, before I round off as well, I'm gonna stop and say, did you have anything else you wanted to bring up?
No, info in the socials below. So me, TrekWars and Fantasy, Olympus at Olympus 0511, and may the force be with you always.
May the force be with you.